They see your value now, but the truth is your value was never missing. You were simply presenting yourself to them from a place where you questioned it, doubted it, and sometimes begged them to recognize what you had not yet fully recognized within yourself. But something has changed in you. You are no longer the person who needs their attention to feel chosen, the person who analyzes every silence, accepts the bare minimum, or wonders whether they truly care. You changed the way you see yourself when it comes to them. And because your inner position changed, the way they experience you has begun to change as well. This is why they want to hear from you now. This is why the person who once took your presence for granted may suddenly become curious about your silence. This is why they may regret not talking to you in the past, not appreciating you when you were available, and not responding with the love, respect, or consistency you deserved. When you were always there, they became comfortable with the old version of you. They knew how to predict your reactions and receive your attention without having to truly value it. But now, you are not moving from that old identity anymore. You are not trying to convince them of your importance. You have become someone who knows it. And when you know your value, you stop trying to prove it. You stop chasing the conversation. You stop forcing the outcome and treating their current behavior as the final truth about your relationship. Instead, you began to occupy a different inner state. You began to see yourself as someone who is desired, remembered, respected, prioritized, and deeply valued. You started imagining yourself as the person they cannot casually lose, the person whose absence creates a noticeable space, and the person whose energy cannot be replaced simply because you are no longer offering it from a place of desperation. This is what Neville Goddard meant when he taught that your conception of yourself determines your experience. It is not enough to repeat, "They love me," while secretly identifying as the person they ignore. It is not enough to say, "I am chosen," while constantly checking whether they have chosen you yet. The real shift happens when you no longer need external evidence to confirm the identity you have accepted within. You become the version of yourself who is already secure in the relationship, already worthy of love, and already certain that you are wanted. You worked on yourself quietly, without anyone applauding you. You faced the fears that made you overthink every interaction. You questioned the stories you had been carrying about being rejected, forgotten, replaced, or not being enough. You learned to stop turning one delayed reply into a prophecy about your future. You learned to stop making their temporary behavior more powerful than your chosen assumption. You started returning to yourself and speaking to yourself with more kindness. You began moving through your day as someone who did not need to chase love because love was already part of who you were. And this is the version of you they feel now. They may not understand what has changed, but they can sense that something is different. They may look at your messages, your photos, your silence, or even the way you carry yourself and realize that you are no longer emotionally standing in the same place. The old version of you was inwardly asking, "Do you still want me?" The new version is declaring, "Of course I am wanted." The old version needed a response to feel calm. The new version feels calm first. And because of that calmness, you no longer react to every movement in the outside world. You became less available to confusion. You stopped celebrating the smallest effort as proof of a grand love story. You stopped trying to be perfect enough, attractive enough, or understanding enough to earn what should have been given freely. This does not mean that you became cold. It means you became clear. You still care, but you no longer abandon yourself in the process of caring about someone else. That is why they may suddenly want to talk to you. They are not encountering the same person they knew before. They remember the version of you who was always emotionally available, always ready to explain, always hoping for another chance, and always leaving the door open while standing outside their own worth. But now, they sense that your attention is no longer something they can take for granted. You have withdrawn the assumption that they are the one with all the power. And when you remove that assumption, the entire dynamic begins to reorganize. They may regret not talking to you in the past because your absence reveals what your presence once allowed them to ignore. When you were constantly available, they could avoid recognizing your importance. But when you changed your self-concept, You changed the role you occupied in their experience. You are no longer the person waiting for permission to be loved. You became the person whose presence feels valuable, whose attention feels meaningful, and whose absence creates reflection. Now, do not become impatient and start searching for proof. You do not need to monitor their regret, decode every online activity, or turn every coincidence into evidence. The moment you become obsessed with proving that they are missing you, you step back into the identity of someone who believes they are not yet valued. Your work is not to force them to miss you. Your work is to become so internally familiar with being valued that you no longer require constant evidence of it. Live from the end. Live as the person who knows the conversation has already changed. Live as the person who is easy to love, impossible to forget, and naturally prioritized. This does not require you to pretend that you have no emotions. You may still miss them or feel anxious sometimes. It simply means you do not build your identity around those emotions. You allow them to pass, and you return to the chosen version of yourself. You are not the person who was rejected in the past. You are not the person who was ignored in the past. You are not the person who was treated casually in the past. Those experiences may have happened, but they do not have to define what happens next. You are now standing in the shoes of someone different from the person who kept looking outside for permission to feel worthy. And they can feel that difference because you can feel it first. You feel it in the way you respond, in the way you no longer rush to explain yourself, and in the way you can put your phone down and continue with your life. You no longer need to create jealousy, perform indifference, or manipulate circumstances to get their attention. You are not playing a game with them. You are ending the old game with yourself. The belief that love must be earned through anxiety, pursuit, sacrifice, and emotional exhaustion. So if they are thinking about you now, let them think about you. If they want to reach out, let them reach out. If they regret not speaking to you before, let that realization unfold naturally. You do not need to run toward the evidence. You only need to remain faithful to the new story, the new self-concept, and the assumption that you are valued in this connection. They see your value because you finally stopped arguing against it within yourself. They want to hear from you because you are no longer energetically begging to be heard. They regret overlooking you because you no longer overlook yourself. You changed your inner conversation. You changed the image you held of yourself. You changed the emotional position from which you imagined them and expected the relationship to unfold. As you remain loyal to this new identity, the world begins to show you a different reflection. The person they remember is not the person you are now. The person they are meeting now is confident in being loved, secure in being chosen, calm in being desired, and certain that the relationship can reflect the inner transformation you have made. You are no longer waiting for them to give you value. You are moving as someone who already has it. They see your value now because you see it. They want to hear from you now because you have become someone whose presence carries weight. And they regret not talking to you in the past because the version of you they failed to appreciate is no longer the version standing before them. I hope this changed your perspective. Subscribe, and I will meet you with another golden nugget soon. Happy manifesting.